Welcome, another day, another case. Let's get right into it. We are in a new space today, guys. I'm at my mom's house today filming using her stuff. So I hope you enjoy the awesome background because mine is nothing like this. Lincoln, Nebraska in the 1950s was very quiet and desolate. It was the type of town you could leave your door unlocked. It was the type of town you'd want to start a family in. Just all around a wholesome neighborhood. The community was very tight-knit. All of that would change in 1938 when Charles Starkweather would be born. Being born the third of 7 boys and 1 girl. Being from such a big family, Charles and his brothers and sisters would face a lot of hardships growing up. They were just very poor. Locals described them as poor white trash. Not my words, not my words. To put it better, they were just on the lower pillars of society. Although they faced a lot of hardship, they still had a great, loving childhood growing up. They would be seen playing cowboys in the front yard, helping their mom with dinner. Their dad would take them on fishing trips. They still had a very loving home. Although they were poor, they did the best with what they had. Charlie's mother, Helen, was the breadwinner of the family. She was the main provider. Their father had severe arthritis and he could not work consistently, which made it hard for him to keep a job. It was said that their mother did work as a waitress and she did her best to provide for the family. She was also described as a sweet, loving woman. There was nothing ever really rude said about her. So you can only imagine how hard it was to spread these resources between 9 people, like such a huge family. It wasn't easy, but they did the best they could. As far as Charlie's siblings go, none of them really got in trouble growing up. There was nothing really bad said about them. They kind of just lived their life and grew up and led on normal lives. But Charlie would be a different case. Charlie was very sweet growing up. That was until he went to his first day of school. It's said that when Charlie came home, he came home a completely different kid. Mind you, let me take you a little back. Charlie was bow-legged and he did have a learning disability. He went to school in elementary school in the 50s. So put 2 and 2 together. Kids are mean. So I'm sure he had it hard, but it's said that it took a huge toll on him and his development. Growing up, Charlie would never be the same. He actually became the bully himself. It's said that he would go to school and find the biggest kid in his grade and just go up to him and pick a fight with him and beat the hell out of him just to bring him down, just to bring the other person down to his level. Charlie wanted that power and that control over people. You know how they do in prison? Like they'll find the biggest, the top dog and they'll fight them and become, or at least on TV, and they'll become the top dog. That's what Charlie was trying to do. The sheriff's son, Dennis Karnoff, actually lived across the street from Charlie and would go to school with him. He described Charlie as kind of like a black cat. You never knew what to expect from him. It was like walking on eggshells. He didn't like to be around Charlie. No one really liked to be around Charlie just because you never knew when he was just gonna get upset with you and pounce on you. So basically, Charlie felt like the only way to earn respect and power was to inflict fear onto other people and other kids. And that was just his theme throughout the rest of his school years. He was just a big bully who went around traumatizing the neighborhood and his school. Charlie really wanted to be his time's James Dean. He wanted to embody all the rebellious traits of James Dean and of the roles that James Dean would play. He really thought he was James Dean. After school, Charlie would work as a garbage man, and this job in specific would start his feelings towards wanting more and feeling like he was owed more out of life. He would have these routes where he would go to middle-class neighborhoods and upper-class neighborhoods. Mind you, Charlie grew up in a mobile home. So these even middle-class neighborhoods seemed like fancy mansions to Charlie. And Charlie felt like he was owed this. He felt like he had been deprived this all his life and he wanted this and he was going to get it. En route one morning, 18-year-old Charlie would run into 13-year-old CARIL and FUGATE, and the two would immediately hit it off. They took a liking to each other almost immediately. They started spending all of their time together, going to one another's house. Charlie would go to work and Caril would go to school, but immediately after they would meet up, hang out, go on their little dates. But there was one thing about that was Caril's parents could not stand Charlie. They hated their relationship and they did not want them together. So just to put in retrospect a little bit, Charlie did not have much luck with the ladies, mind you. He did have a learning disability and he was bow-legged. So that did make it harder for him to make friends and even grow relationships. So he did not have the best luck with the ladies. And the fact that Caril was just starstruck over him and so in love with him really made him feel special, and it made him feel even more for Caril. And on Caril's end of it, she loved Charlie's bad boy persona. She loved everything that he represented. She wanted to be like him, honestly, and she loved the attention that he gave her. So it was just a toxic mix that was bound to end in destruction, in my opinion. Caril was described as your normal 13-year-old. There wasn't much to be said about her. She did not like school at all. It was said that she hardly ever showed up, and when she did, she didn't pay attention. She gave her teachers a hard time. She just really didn't like school. She was very into boys and makeup and just kind of like a regular 13-year-old. What 13-year-old does love school at that age? But there was one occasion where Caril's art teacher had gotten her in trouble for something, and she did tell her art teacher, "I bet you next time you get me in trouble, I'll kill you." So she definitely wasn't an angel by any means. As their relationship continues, everything is going fine and going smooth. Charlie's going to work at his garbage truck job, and little 13-year-old Caril is going to school. And everything is just going fine. That is until late November, Charlie would actually go to a gas station near Caril's house to get her a Christmas present. And he would find this little toy, red flag. He would find this little toy for her, and he brings it up to the register. 21-year-old Robert Colbert would be working. And he goes to the register and he's asking, but he doesn't have any money. So he's asking if he can make payments on this little gas station toy. And Robert is just kind of trying to explain to him, "I just started working here a couple weeks ago. I can't really do that." Like, just basically, like, nicely telling him no. And Charlie gets pissed. He storms out of the gas station, and that was kind of the end of that. Well, over the next 2 weeks, Johnny would come to the gas station multiple times, again, for, like, cigarettes and gum. But really, I think he was just scoping the scenery, like scoping the place out to kind of plan what he wanted to do. Charlie would come back to the gas station a final time, but this time he would park on the side of the highway and cover his face with a bandana. As Charlie enters the gas station, he would see 21-year-old Robert at the register, and he would hold a gun to his face. He would start telling him, "Get the fucking money, get the fucking money, get the money out of the safe. I want it now." And Robert starts trying to open the safe. He can't open the safe. Charlie is getting pissed and not understanding why Robert can't open the safe. And Robert is just pleading with him, telling him, "I don't know how. I just, like I said, I just started this job 2 weeks ago." And he's pleading with him, telling him, "I have a pregnant wife at home. Like, please don't do this. You can have the money. I won't go to the police." But Charlie doesn't want to hear any of that. Charlie wants the money. So he says screw the plan of getting the money out of the safe, and he tells him to give him all the money out of the till. Robert does just that. He gets the money out of the till. He hands it to Charlie, and it's about $100. And Charlie could have walked away and decided, okay, I got the money. I got my little revenge. He's scared. He could have took the money and went home. No. He then takes Robert, forces him into the driver's side of his car, makes him drive them to a desolate, quiet road, and takes him out of the car and shoots him execution style in the head. That should be the end of the case, right? Case closed. Unfortunately, this was a crime of passion. The end. Wrong. Charlie liked the way that it felt. Charlie enjoyed killing Robert. This would only be the start for Charlie. After the murder, Charlie would take the gun and throw it in the river, and then he would modify his car to stay undetectable by police. He would lay low and not commit any crimes for about 2 months, but his next attack would be even more horrifying. January 21st, 1958, authorities would respond to a 911 call that would lead them to a triple homicide. They would find 36-year-old Velda Bartlett, 58-year-old Marion Bartlett, and just 2-year-old Betty Jean. These were the close family members of Carol Ann Fugate, Charlie's girlfriend. He brutally murdered and killed her entire family. Let me set the scene. Marion and Charlie get into a verbal altercation, and Charlie shoots Marion in the face. Velda starts freaking out, screaming because her husband just got shot in the face, and they stab her in the throat and also shoot her in the face. Betty Jean is crying, screaming. She just witnessed her parents get murdered in front of her. She gets stabbed in the throat and beaten with the back of a shotgun. Charlie proceeds to wrap Velda in bedding and take her to the outhouse and stuff her in the toilet. He would put Betty Jean in a box, a cardboard box, and set her on top of her mother. And they would put 58-year-old Marion Bartlett in a chicken coop. Charlie and Carol would live in that house for the next 6 days, just yards away from her family's rotting bodies. People are starting to show up because Marion hasn't showed up to work. No one's heard from Betty Jean or Velda, so the family members and close friends are really starting to get panicked, and they start to show up to the house just to check in. Carol had actually written a note that said, "Stay away, sick with the flu." So for the next 6 days, family and friends would be sent away. So after 6 days of getting sent away, Carol's grandmother would show up to the door, basically demanding to be let in, and Carol would say no. Carol's grandmother would then let them know she's calling the police and they're going to get in that house either way. With police on their trail and they knew the police were coming, Charlie and Carol immediately take off. They decide they need to get the hell out of Dodge. So they start frantically packing up their stuff. They put everything in the car and they hit the road. By Monday evening, word of the triple homicide had already spread through the entire town. Everyone knew about it and everyone was honestly severely panicked because the severity of the murders, like, it was sickening what they did to these people. But at the same time, the public also wasn't stressing it as much because it seemed very personal and very prolific and very specific. Carol would later say she had no part in these brutal murders, claiming that she wasn't even home when the attacks happened. But Charlie would say otherwise, stating that she had a specific role in Betty Jean's death. While on the run, they would arrive at a farm belonging to August Myers, who was actually a family friend of the Starkweather. Upon arrival, the car would get stuck in the mud along the driveway. So there's this long dirt road leading to the farm. I don't know if any of you are from the South, but in my neck of the woods, 90% of the people have dirt driveways. So it's this long dirt driveway that leads to the farm. They got stuck kind of at the beginning. So they decided to just walk on foot the rest of the way because it wasn't that far. Now, according to Charlie, August would answer the door with a shotgun and Charlie killed him out of self-defense. But I don't believe that for 1 second, and I don't think you guys do either. August was shot at the back of the head at close range. So if someone answers the door with a shotgun to your face, how do you end up shooting them in the back of the head at close range? Sounds like August let him in the door, and as August turned around, he got shot in the back of the head. But hey, that's neither here nor there. They take August's body and put him in his shed by his house. After murdering August, they would ransack the place looking for money, weapons, and they would then eat Jell-O and cookies after. As it got dark, they started getting panicked and they wanted to hit the road again. But remember, like I said, their car had gotten stuck in the dirt road driveway, so they started just walking on foot and they decided we need a car. As they're walking down the road, 17-year-old Robert Jensen and 16-year-old Carol King would stop and offer them a ride. Being the nice, sweet people they were both described as just sweet, down-to-earth, loving people. They would take the shirt off their back for anyone. That's what the people around them would say about them. So they pull over, they ask Carol and Charlie if they need a ride. Obviously, Carol and Charlie say yes, and they get in the car. As they're driving, Charlie would pull out his gun and make the couple pull over to an abandoned school where there was an old storm cellar. Robert would be found face down at the entrance of the storm cellar with 6 gunshot wounds to the back of his head, and Carol would be found partially nude with her sexual organs stabbed, and she would also be shot in the head. Charlie would argue that he did not stab Carol King in her sexual organs, that was actually Carol, his girlfriend. The detectives believed him. Prosecutors did too. I also do too. I don't think it fits Charlie's MO to stab as much as it does to shoot. But that's all speculation. No one will ever know who really stabbed Carol. But either way, the two of them was responsible for it. So, using the Jensen's car, the two were off to find their next victims. Unfortunately, they would find the Ward home. In the more prominent, wealthy area of Lincoln stood the Ward's home. As they enter the Ward home, they would find Clara and her deaf maid, Lillian Finkel, holding them there at gunpoint all day until around 6 p.m. when her husband, Chester, would get home, and then they would murder all 3 of them. When Chester, who was an industrialist, didn't show up for work the next day, police would be called to his home, and that's where they would find the bodies of all 3 of them. Just as they walk in, they would find Chester laying there with gunshot wounds to his back and through his temple. Clara would be found just feet away on the floor with stab wounds to her neck, chest, and back. And Lillian Finkel would be found tied to a bed with stab wounds across her legs, arms, and stomach. Now, with all of these murders being so public and happening so close in time, the public was starting to get very frantic and very worried. It wasn't just personal and kind of like specific anymore. It was all over the map. It was a murder spree, a killing spree. So the public was very scared. They were locking their doors. If you had a gun, you were loading it, you were using it. With the public being so scared, the police would set up roadblocks and try to keep the couple from leaving state lines, but they would be too late because the couple would already be on the road. The two would already be well on their way to freedom, to Washington. They thought they were just going to get off with these murders and run off happily ever after into the sunset. Mind you, he's 18 and she's 13, so their minds are not the same as fully grown adults, and they clearly have some mental issues, so their minds really aren't the same as full-grown adults. But in their minds, somehow, some way, they were going to get away with all of these murders. I don't know how they did, how they thought this would go, but they thought they were going to get away with it. They're on the road. Mind you, they're in the Ward family car. The family they just murdered, yeah, they're driving their car as the getaway car. That is the theme of them. They do that every time. I don't know why it's so disrespectful. The plates would end up being a dead giveaway considering they were in Washington and the plates were from Lincoln, Nebraska, so they did decide to get a new car. As they're driving down the road, they do see a random car just parked on the side of the road. They decide to pull over and take it. They approach the car and see a sleeping car salesman inside and shoot this man point blank range 9 times in the chest while he was sleeping. So he can't get the e-brake released, and that is when 29-year-old geologist Joe Sprankle stops, pulls over, and says, "Hey, can I help you?" That is when Charlie then says, "Get this e-brake unstuck or I'm going to shoot you in the face." And Joe's like, "No." So they start fighting. A struggle takes place, and Joe actually does get the gun from Charlie. As soon as Joe gets Charlie disarmed, a deputy would pull up right behind them, and Carol immediately runs to the deputy and says, "Help, help, I've been held hostage, I've been held hostage." Charlie immediately takes off, books it in his car. A high-speed chase immediately takes place, and they're going for a little bit. The police actually shoot Charlie through the back of his window and just graze his ear, and he immediately halts the car, comes to a stop, and police were able to successfully arrest him. From the Fugate family to the car salesman, this all took place within a span of 8 days. That progression is crazy. Carol's defense was that she was a hostage, and Charlie's defense was that all of his murders were self-defense, all 11. At one point, the two of them were claiming that CARIL was completely innocent and she had no part in the murders, but Charlie would go back on his statements and implicate her in a lot of the murders, and trial would take place. Following a 2-month trial, CARIL would be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and Charles would be sentenced to death. CARIL did not shed a single tear throughout the trial until she was sentenced. She did not care that she killed all those people. She was a sociopath, just as well as Charlie Stark. And that is the story on how a young couple went on a killing spree in Lincoln, Nebraska. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, do whatever you gotta do. See you in the next one. Bye.